Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we've got another news and rumor review here to discuss. In today's video, we're looking at some signings from our past couple of days, some more very interesting pieces of news updates, and I've got some trade rumors involving the Oilers, the Blue Jackets, the Senators, and the Minnesota Wild. We'll get to all of these updates and trade rumors from our past couple of days coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Now before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to do this without all of you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below, don't forget to leave a comment, and don't forget to stay tuned for videos coming out in the very near future. So in today's video, as per usual, we've got another news and rumor video here to discuss. We're going to look at a couple of signings from our past couple of days. There have been 3 signings from our past couple of days that I want to touch on here today. So first, with the St. Louis Blues, Nathan Walker, who's entering the final year of a 2-year deal AAV of league minimum, has been a pretty solid bottom 6 forward over the past couple of years in the St. Louis Blues organization, as the Blues saw fit to sign him. The Blues have signed Nathan Walker to a 2-year contract extension, AAV of $888,000. That'll begin at the start of next season. So that's not a bad pickup here. Walker last year had 8 goals, 16 points in 73 games at the NHL level, which was the highest career high in goals and gave him a new career high in points. So Walker's not going to be an everyday NHLer, but he can play like 60 to 70 games, put you up like 5 to 10 goals and like 15 to 20 points, and that's what you probably want from your fourth liners. So getting him signed to a deal under $1 million for the next 2 seasons on top of still being signed for this year is a pretty solid move there from the Blues. So interesting note there, but Walker has signed a 2-year extension to remain with the Blues. They always saw the Blackhawks in one of the last RFAs left in the NHL, and that was why Kaiser, 23-year-old left shot defenseman, had his first taste of NHL action last year. It was an RFA, and the Hawks have now signed him. The Hawks give Kaiser a 2-year contract with an AAV of $1.7 million. So it's not a bad pickup here. Kaiser last year had 17 games played at the AHL level, putting up 3 assists, and also had 4 goals and 8 points in 57 NHL games, which was his first few tastes of NHL action. The year prior, he did get 7 assists and 7 points in 32 games, so he played 25 more games, had a point more. Really solid stuff there. Kaiser looks like going forward, he's going to be a really solid third pair defenseman, maybe like a 4 or 5 guy going forward. So not a bad pickup here. $1.7 million isn't overly bad for a younger defenseman, and this is a pretty solid pickup here for the Hawks to send over the remaining RFAs. And lastly, we saw another contract extension. 36-year-old center and longtime Flame Mikael Backlund, who's entering a final year of his deal, AAV of $4.5 million, winds up signing another contract extension that could very well lead him to retirement. The Flames have given Mikael Backlund a 2-year contract extension, AAV of $3.25 million, to keep him in the Flames organization for the next couple of seasons. That's a really solid pickup here for the Flames. Backlund was a really solid player last year. He put up 15 goals and 32 points in 76 games. Starting to get lower in the lineup. Obviously, he's up there in age at 36 years old, so he's definitely starting to slow down a little bit, but he's been a really solid Flame for a long period of time, and this contract will probably take him until retirement. So very interesting note there, but instead of potentially moving him at this year's trade deadline, the Flames have signed Mikael Backlund to a 2-year extension, and he's going to be with the Flames for the next couple of seasons. So very interesting note there. But those are all the signings for our past couple of days. The Flames signed Backlund, and the Blues signed Walker to 2-year contract extensions, and Kaiser gets a new deal with the Blackhawks. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to a couple of news updates. So when it comes to some news updates, just got a lot of things to talk about here, so I'm going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. First, on the injury update portion, it sounds like Garrioch should be ready to go for the start of the season after having knee surgery last year in February. He missed the last third of the season, or last half of the season last year, due to injuries. It sounds like Dak will be ready for the start of the season. Maybe not the start of training camp, but he'll definitely be ready for the start of season. So it's a pretty big boost there for Montreal. On top of that, Matthew Barzal will be ready for training camp after missing 52 games last year with upper body injuries. So it's another big boost. Barzal missed a whole bunch of time last year due to injuries, so him being healthy and ready to go for training camp is a big boost for the Islanders. The Jackets have 4 of their AHL level players in Dume, McHugh, Matejchuk, and Sillinger all out to start training camp, so they're all dealing with, I think, mostly minor injuries. 1 or 2 of them might have a week-to-week injury, but for the most part, those are all minor injuries, so bad stuff there for some of the young talent trying to make the NHL roster this upcoming season. Semyon Varlamov's status for training camp is still unknown and undetermined, so we'll have to wait and see on that. Keep tabs on Varlamov. He missed a whole bunch of time last year due to injuries, so if he was able to be healthy healthy, that'll be a big boost there for the Islanders. Rasmus Ristolainen will miss a month or two for the Philadelphia Flyers due to his current injury that he sustained late last season. So that's not overly great news there. The Flyers don't have the deepest of blue lines, so to see one of their top four defensemen, Ristolainen, be out for the next couple of months is going to be a bad blow. So that's a horrible blow there for the Flyers. Tomas Nosek has undergone knee surgery. He'll miss a few months. There's no exact timeline, but I expect probably November and December will be the earliest time Nosek could come back. So that's another solid bomb 6 forward in Florida that's going to be out for the next little while. Nick Paul's underwent upper body injury surgery and will be out the next 6 weeks. That's a horrible blow there for the Bolts. Paul's a really solid middle 6 forward, with us being only a couple weeks away from the start of the season. He's probably going to be targeting like a late October, early November return date. So very interesting note there, but Paul's going to miss at least a couple of games for the Tampa Bay Lightning. Liam O'Brien has a lower body injury in Utah and is out week to week, so that may promote to start the regular season. It might not. We'll have to wait and see and monitor that as training camp goes along, but it's a bad blow there for Utah. O'Brien's a really solid bomb 6 forward, and Zach Hyman won't be on the ice for at least the first week of training camp. Maybe later on to training camp before the season starts, Hyman can get back onto the ice and practice. There's still a possibility he could miss the start of the season due to his injury sustained last year in the Western Conference Final, but that's not been determined at this point in time. He's just going to miss the next week. So very interesting note there. Those are all the updates involving guys like Doc, Barzal, Jackets rookies, Varlamov, Ristolainen, Nosek, Paul, O'Brien, and Hyman. So very interesting note there. Next, going over to a couple of PTO updates. We saw 4 teams saying PTOs over the past couple of days they haven't mentioned yet. The Chicago Blackhawks assigned maybe the top defensive player left in free agency, and that's Matt Grzelyck to a PTO. The San Jose Sharks assigned former first-round pick Oliver Wahlstrom to a PTO. The Pittsburgh Penguins assigned bomb 6 forward Robbie Fabbri to a PTO, and the Predators assigned AHLers Ratcliffe and Harrington to PTO. So for the Preds, Ratcliffe, Harrington get PTOs. They're mostly AHL level guys. Maybe 1 or 2 of them get league minimum deals for 1 year, but I really don't think those are going to be too big for Nashville. Fabbri has shown in the past he can be a solid bomb 6 forward in Detroit and St. Louis last year and Anaheim. I mean, he might be able to get like a low-end deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Wahlstrom goes to San Jose's training camp on a PTO. That's not too bad. Like the Sharks, like I've talked about in the past, do have a really solid and deep defense, of course, so I wouldn't say it's a guarantee by any means that Wahlstrom's going to get an NHL level contract, but at least he's going to go to training camp on a PTO. And Grzelyck goes to PTO on the Hawks. The Hawks do have a really young blue line, so I do wonder if maybe they sign him to like a 1 or 2 year deal, but at the very least he's going to showcase himself to maybe get a deal before the season starts with another team. So we should wait and see on that. But Grzelyck has signed a PTO with Chicago, Wahlstrom with San Jose, Fabbri with Pittsburgh, and a couple of AHLers with Nashville, so very interesting note there. And lastly here, going over to a couple of very interesting pieces of news. So first, when it comes to Jack Eichel, a couple of recent reports have indicated that Jack Eichel would be open to signing a contract in season, unlike some of these other guys that we talked about, like maybe Anthony Stolarz and a couple of the other bigger time UFAs. It seems like Eichel is open to still negotiate about a contract extension in season for the Vegas Golden Knights, so that's really good news there. I do expect something potentially to happen before our season starts, but if nothing happens with Eichel before our season starts, it seems like he will be open to signing October, November, December to sign and stay with the Vegas Golden Knights, so that's very good and interesting. Huge news there for the Vegas Golden Knights. When it comes to the Utah Mammoth, after clearing the NHLPA Players Assistance Program, it apparently seems like Utah is planning on waiving Connor Ingram. So very interesting note there. Ingram last year had a really solid season. It was interrupted by him being placed in the NHLPA Players Assistance Program. With him still being in the Players Assistance Program this offseason, that's why Utah went out and signed Vitek Vanecek to back up Vejmelka, and now it seems like Utah is going to be intent to start him in the AHL, maybe even trade him. That's a possibility. But at the very least, they're probably going to run with Vanecek and Vejmelka to start the season, and it seems like they are planning to waive Ingram and send him to the minors. So very interesting note there, but do not expect Connor Ingram to start the season on the NHL roster for Utah. Next, going over to Rasmus Andersson. Recently, Andersson was doing an interview sort of debunking some of the trade speculation that was coming out this past offseason. One of the things he did mention is that Andersson only wanting to go and sign an extension in Vegas was false info, according to Andersson. He said that he was not only willing to sign with the Vegas Golden Knights in a trade. Like, there was a lot of talk out there that teams like Dallas and Toronto may have had interest in Rasmus Andersson with the extension, but he only wanted to sign an extension in Vegas, according to Anderson. That's false info, and that wasn't the case with him. So I still think we could say Rise Anderson trade, probably closer to trade deadline. But it's not like Anderson wasn't just wanting to go to Vegas, so very interesting note there. When it comes to Martin Necas, apparently a couple of recent reports have said that Martin Necas may be waiting for the Kaprizov deal to get done before he signs his. Necas is a pending UFA. He's making $6 million this upcoming season, could probably get in the 9 to 10, maybe even $11 million range on the open market this upcoming offseason. Now, the Avalanche really do want to try and sign him, and they want to sign him early. Like, they don't want another duplicate Rantanen situation. But it seems like Necas at this current point in time is intent on waiting for at least a couple of the bigger dominoes to fall. Kaprizov, Kempe, Connor, McDavid, all of those guys to potentially maybe sign some new deals before he signs his deals. So as much as the Avalanche really do want to try and sign him, they may have to be waiting for a little bit. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And lastly, going over to New York Rangers, they have named their new captain, and it is J.T. Miller. Beautiful pick here for the New York Rangers. There was a couple of people who thought Fox might get it, who thought Zibanejad might get it, who saw a couple of those other guys, Trocheck might get it. But I think Miller's the right pick here. Like, Miller's signed long term. I think he's got like 4 or 5 years left on his deal, so he's going to be there for a while for the Rangers. He just was reacquired by the Rangers after like, I think 5 or 6, 7 years out of the Rangers organization after the Rangers traded him to Tampa all those years ago. So he came back to New York, had a pretty solid season last year, finished up the season after being traded there from Vancouver. I think there's a smart move here. He's a good veteran. He's a good leader. He was one of the leaders in the Canucks team that went to the second round a couple of years back. So I think this is a smart move here from the Rangers to name Miller their captain, thus leaving only 2 teams without a captain. That's the Boston Bruins and the San Jose Sharks. So very interesting out there. But those are all the news updates from our past couple of days involving the Rangers captain, Necas, Anderson, Ingram, Eichel, all the PTOs updates, all the signing updates, and all the injury updates. Definitely, that's a very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to a couple of trade rumors. So we're going to start over here with the Columbus Blue Jackets. According to Aaron Portzline of The Athletic, he has said that Igor Chinakov has come to the training camp for the Columbus Blue Jackets, and apparently he has not rescinded his trade request. So we know that a couple of months ago, I think it was back in July at some point, there was a couple of reports saying that Igor Chinakov has requested a trade from the Columbus Blue Jackets. So it seems like he's still not really wanting to stay in Columbus. It seems like he's a little bit more open to maybe staying in Columbus instead of being moved, but his trade request has not been rescinded, so he still would like to see if he could get a fresh start. Like I said, I don't think the Jackets are overly intent on moving him at this current point in time, but I think if it was the right deal, if it got them some sort of an upgrade, if he was able to be dealt in a package to get them some sort of a forward upgrade, I think they would do that. Given all the younger players they have on this team, I just don't think they're going to move Chinakov for the sake of moving Chinakov. And I don't think that'll be a smart move given the fact Chinakov was, I think, a former first-round pick. So, very interesting out there, but even though he might be open to staying for at least a little bit, Chinakov has not rescinded his trade request and would still probably like a fresh start. So, very interesting out there. Next, going over to an article I saw. Once again, no insiders linking anything. This is just an article speculating some of the potential goalies the Edmonton Oilers could go after at some point this offseason or potentially during the season. Now, this article mentioned 3 goaltenders, or 4, I guess, that they could go after. That's Levi in Buffalo, Dobesh or Fowler in Montreal, and Jarry in Pittsburgh. We've heard about Jarry over the past little while. The Penguins really want to move on from him. There doesn't seem to be a whole bunch of interest in Jarry, especially after the player over the past couple of years in his $5+ million contract. Now, like I said, the Oilers are very pressed up against the cap. They would have to do some major cap fidangling to try and make some sort of a deal work. But I do think Jarry would be an interesting add and could be even an upgrade on a guy like Calvin Pickard as the backup. Like, I don't think they would trade Stuart Skinner for him, but I could see them maybe have Jarry replace Pickard as the backup. That is a possibility. When it comes to the other 2 guys like Levi, I don't expect to be moved. I know that they still have a whole bunch of goaltenders. Like, at this point, Lyon, Georgiev, and the injured Ukko-Pekka-Luukkonen are probably a little bit ahead of Levi on the depth chart. He's probably scheduled to have another solid AHL season. That might be concerning for him because a couple of years ago he was viewed as the starter, and now he's playing consistent NHL minutes. So in this article that mentioned that if Levi is very unhappy in Buffalo, maybe he tries to get a trade, and maybe Edmonton could pounce on that. That's a possibility, but I think it's a very unlikely possibility. Though Besher Fowler in Montreal makes some sense too. Like, the Habs are probably going to want one of them to be the starter of the future. Though Besher had some really good seasons last year. Fowler's coming over from the NCAA. I think, though, that the Montreal Canadiens will be content with keeping both of them right now. Like, they could have a Dobish-Fowler tandem in the next couple of years once Montembeault leaves. And on top of that, like, Fowler just came from the NCAA. Like, I don't think they want to trade him, and Dobeš is a solid backup for this upcoming season. So we'll have to wait and see on that. No guarantees that any of these goaltenders get moved, but this recent article did link Levi, Dobeš, or Fowler in Montreal, and Jerry as possible goalie options for the Edmonton Oilers. Next, moving over to Bruce Garrioch. I mentioned in our last video that the World Juniors situation has been resolved and that players can sign in early October and start playing back in NHL clubs in December 1st. So that's very interesting note there. But one guy who might not be returning to his old team is Alex Formenton in Ottawa. According to Bruce Garrioch, he says that the Senators are looking to move on from Alex Formenton. According to Garrioch, he says that both the player and the team know that it's a time for a fresh start. I don't think the Sens really want to bring back Formenton, plus he's been really passed by a whole bunch of players on the depth charts, and I just don't think Formenton wants to go back to Ottawa either. So it seems like they're going to try and find a trade for him. Once again, no guarantees. I think he's a UFA in 2026 or 2027, so there's very likely chance they could just let him walk in a couple of years' time. He could keep on playing overseas for the time being, but it seems that the Sens will at least try and explore the opportunity of a Formenton move. So we shall wait and see on that, but very interesting note there. The Sens, after all the World Junior stuff was announced, might still try and move Formenton, so very interesting note there. And lastly, going over to Kirill Kaprizov. After that massive contract was rejected by Kirill Kaprizov, there were a couple of recent reports that came out saying that the Minnesota Wild had asked Kaprizov for a trade list and that they were trying to shop him, potentially trying to move off of him to try and get something in return after the $16 million AAV deal didn't go through. According to Pierre LeBrun, that is not the case. Kaprizov is not being shopped. According to a couple of other recent reports, I think from Michael Russo, the Wild have not asked for a trade list. So all of those reports that were being speculated that the Wild had been asking for a trade list on Kaprizov and were trying to make some sort of movement, those are all false. That's nothing that's happened right now. It seems like Minnesota is still intent on trying to figure out some sort of way to sign Kaprizov before a season starts. Maybe in a couple of weeks, month or two, maybe closer to a trade deadline, if the Wild aren't doing overly well or if they really don't have a contract in place with Kaprizov, maybe they ask for a trade list at that point. That's a possibility, but at this current point in time, there is no speculation at this point, according to Pierre LeBrun, that the Wild have asked Kaprizov for a trade list or that Kaprizov is being shopped. But it's still definitely interesting that if a Wild Kaprizov extension isn't in place by the start of the season, then maybe we start to hear some things about the Wild moving him. But LeBrun definitely says at this point in time, Kaprizov is not being shopped by Minnesota. So don't expect a Kaprizov trade in the next couple of weeks. So very interesting note there. But that's all I'm going to talk for today. I left you guys thoughts. What are your opinion on all of this? Do you think Kaprizov will be dealt eventually by the Minnesota Wild? Do you think Ottawa does move Formenton at some point this season? Do you think that the Oilers could go after a guy like Levi, Dobeš, Fowler, or Jarry for in the net? And do you think that the Jackets will still trade Chinakov after he hasn't rescinded his trade request? Definitely your thoughts on all of that, plus all the news and signings from our past couple of days. That's all I'm going to talk for today. We're going to like this video, and if you'd like to subscribe below. Thank you for all of your support. I would never be able to with all of you guys, so if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe button down below. Don't forget to leave a comment. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Do not forget to stay tuned for more videos coming in the very near future. I also do a blog to make news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that, so check that out. I'm going to say that in the description below. Can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.